Yesterday was the regular monthly meeting of your Golden Rain Foundation. President Lloyd Foster joins us on the program today. Welcome back.
Thank you.
As always, lots of things to talk about, and people had lots of things to talk with you about. You always
Correct.
get a good representation of the community, especially during the time when members can make their comments, and usually these are reserved for things not on your agenda. And then people also have a chance, of course, to speak on the agenda items after the board's discussed it. You always
Sure.
let the public have their say-so.
Yes.
And sometimes we see people with a group or an organization, but a lot of the people are just expressing their individual feelings as well. Well, among the things you dealt with yesterday were some of the changes going on in the transportation field. And there had been the proposal for the dual hub system, and this was going to be Clubhouse 1 and the towers. A lot of times when changes are proposed, they sometimes aren't as, shall we say, smooth as we would hope.
Yes, that's true. The dual hub system came about primarily for saving money, of course. And on paper, it looked great. But in actuality, when the people started riding the buses, the time factor just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so we had a group yesterday that voiced their opinion on that. And we had been kicking around the idea of cutting it back anyway through the committee. But yesterday was the culmination of a lot of study and effort in that respect. And it was voted down, and we're going back to the old system.
All right, so again, that's, I think there have been 2 or 3 changes proposed over the years, and sometimes these work out and sometimes they don't. And of course, again, saving money is important. I know you get lots of complaints, and staff gets lots of complaints when we see a 55-passenger bus with 3 people in it or no people in it going around the community, but
that's always
yeah.
the argument of why are those buses running around empty?
Yeah. And I guess one of the realities is some people say, why don't we use smaller vehicles or vans? And I guess they're just not designed for almost 24-hour-a-day operation, and they would wear out more quickly. You'd have to replace them much sooner than a bus that's actually built and designed for high mileage.
Well, some communities use the smaller buses, and it works fine for them. But it depends on their ridership. Our buses, we need the ramps for those with walkers and wheelchairs and canes, etc., so that they can get in and out of the bus very easily. And other communities use the small buses similar to the OCTA access buses, where they have maybe 2 or 3 steps to get up into them. And our people just can't negotiate those steps.
Right.
So we went to the ramp system, and with the ramp system, you have to have more room to install the ramp and the mechanisms and all of that. And our buses are approved for federal grants.
And that's important.
And that is extremely important because we're getting a lot of buses for almost nothing.
Yeah. So it's a matter of economics, and we're all shocked when Mr. Hammer tells us the mileage. We compare that with what our cars get, and the new federal guidelines are even higher for what cars in the future. But you know, 4.3 and 4.7 sounds horrendous, but for a bus, I guess that's pretty good mileage.
Yeah. And that's for the old buses. The new buses, from what he said yesterday, I think they get around 7 or a little over 7.
Which is great for a bus.
Which is good, but it's still bad,
yeah.
you know, compared to, say, a pickup truck or something like
right.
that can get 28 or 30.
Right, right.
So.
And of course, the hills they have to go up and down doesn't help with that either.
No.
Well, it all costs money, and one of the things you did yesterday, although it had been approved really at a previous meeting, formally approved the 2013 business plan, replacement reserves, and capital reserves.
Right.
Version 3 was actually discussed and passed several weeks ago, but you have to formally adopt it at a meeting.
Correct.
And so that's in operation, and people will be getting those mailers in November, telling them what their carrying charges will be. That, of course, combines the GRF fees along with the fees from United Mutual, Third Mutual, or Mutual 50. So
Correct.
It's a combination of those things. You also are addressing ongoing situations. One is we talked about adaptability and people getting around. A proposal had come your way from the Women's 9-Hole Golf Club for some stairs or railings on the 27-hole course. One of the holes there between, I guess, hole 5 and hole 7, hole 3, some of the areas around there.
It was on course 3.
Okay, so some of the discussion there, and again, people come up with suggestions, the board debates it and votes accordingly.
Right. We, in this particular case, we didn't feel that was necessary, and staff will continue looking at ways of making those elevated tees easier access.
Good. You'll also be seeing some changes at Clubhouse 3, part of the changeover and bringing the broadband operation back in-house. Was quite a bit of equipment was available, some of which is in our front office, some of which is in our green room now. You were sitting in our new chairs this morning, I noticed. But one of them is a big screen TV that was made available for Clubhouse 3. You won't be using it to watch television, but it'll be used for promotional purposes.
Right. It's a 42-inch monitor, and we're going to use it for our marquee.
And you need a little extra money for the hardware software and hardware to make that all work. Lots of opportunities to move some dirt around. You have several, I think about 3 major slope sliding projects around the community. Some residents see, one behind the maintenance center maybe they don't see, but there's several others around the area, and you're dealing with all of those various costs to move the dirt around and bring those banks back up into compliance.
The big cost for any slope repair, of course, is to remove the dirt that's there and get it down to stable soil and then rebuild it with what they call a key that when they build it, it's kind of like a stabilizer. And that's where the extra cost comes in.
So you'll be seeing that work going on. Again, one is by the maintenance center, and probably most of you won't see that, but RV Lot A will be impacted, and West Creek as well. Well, speaking of Aliso Creek, and this dates me how long I've worked here, I remember in 1970, at that time, the assistant administrator being on Channel 6 and going long and loud about how important it was that the community fund something that we learned at the time, a word that we hadn't heard before, called riprap. And these are big boulders, basically, in rocks that get cemented down and placed in the bed to deal with the flow of water in Aliso Creek.
There's different types of riprap. If you go along the Santa Ana River, you'll see different styles of riprap. Some of it is just nothing more than large boulders placed along and tightly packed. Others, they blow in cement to stabilize the banks. So what we're using is kind of a combination boulder and concrete.
And those will be going in which part of Aliso Creek for those that are living in that area?
It would be...
it says between the service road and the
Sevilla,
bridge.
Yeah, it would be off of Sevilla going east.
Okay, and I believe
towards the large green belt, which is more or less like a park.
Yeah, in fact,
and that's where the footbridge was that washed out in December, and that bridge will be replaced at the same time.
All right. So you folks that live along Aliso Creek will see some construction, and in the future some big trucks and some big cranes, and lots of people with some things to install all of that stuff as well. We know that a lot of people like to watch the replays of the board meetings, and policy had been around that we would make those available to the board members as well, and the board reaffirmed the policy that everybody's going to pay a little bit of money for those copies. It's fair.
The request was for board members to receive those DVDs at no charge. The debate, however, centered on what's personal and what's business. From the business aspect, we figured that we could get a copy, at no cost, or we could borrow a copy to do board business with. And so the board decided that we would retain the policy of charging for those DVDs no matter who you are.
Yep. So when you come up here and ask for copies, please have $10 because that's the going rate per DVD per copy.
Right.
The board is gearing up for, we've gotten through now, meet the candidates for United and Third, and those folks have about a month to ballot on that one. The 1st of October will be the deadline for both United and Third directors election for you folks to get your ballots in. Golden Reign election handled a little bit differently.
Right.
Your electorate, if we will, is the elected board members of United, Third, and 50.
Correct.
You'll be having a Meet the Candidates meeting coming up in a few weeks as well.
Right.
Do you know how many vacancies you'll be having this
3.
year? 3 vacancies. And do we have any stated candidates so far?
None that I know of.
Okay.
The last date for filing is September 19th for your candidate filing and also your candidate statement.
We urge you folks that are thinking about that to get on the second floor and get your paperwork going on that. We will, of course, televise the Meet the Candidates program here on Channel 6, albeit the public can't vote, but
Right.
you can maybe speak to your elected board member and say, I thought this individual had some good things to say, and maybe influence it that way. So
Yep.
people will
True.
have a chance to do that. You'll be back next month, and
Right.
again, more things going on as we get to the end of the year, but the board stays busy with all kinds of activities.
Right.
Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Good
Thank
to have you
you.
on the program today. Lloyd Foster, Golden Reign President. Again, a replay coming up tomorrow, Thursday. That will be at 1:30 tomorrow here on Channel 6. And again, next Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock, a final replay of this month's meeting of the GRF. We'll be back with more right after this brief timeout.